It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, into another weekend as we talk your property news, real estate of course, and we talk to all of the real estate commentators and experts out in the field. I hope you've got a great weekend lined up. It is a Saturday morning, October the 5th today. And good morning to you, Tina. Thank you for your email. You said that you are a professional living in Canberra, and you say that you're really interested in hearing more about tiny living and the lifestyle that comes with owning a tiny home. You don't have any children, you say, but you do have a playful border collie pup, and you like the idea, love the idea of living simply without the weight of a mortgage. Although some of these tiny homes, they are getting quite expensive. You say tiny homes seem to be the perfect solution for a more sustainable, minimalist lifestyle. And you ask, could we create more podcasts on this topic? Well, we will certainly do that in the coming months. But what we thought we'd do is go back about 8 or 9 months ago, and this will be something of interest for you, Tina. This was Louise, and she invited us into her tiny home and told us all about it.
Thank you very much, Craig. It's great to be here.
You're not in a bad little spot there. You've carved out your own little tiny home. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been living where you are.
Well, I've been living in the region for about 35 years, but I've been living on the property where my tiny house is for about 2.5 years, and in my tiny house for just over a year.
And your tiny home is what? Give us a little bit of a breakdown in terms of the size.
It's nearly 8 metres long. It's exactly 2.5 metres wide, which is the legal road width allowable for transport along the road. It's just under 4.3 metres high from the ground when it's on its trailer. It's fully steel construction, which I really wanted because I'm parked under some major trees and I just want to be absolutely sure I'll survive any kind of branch falling out of the sky. And well insulated, beautifully made, lots of windows. It's a pleasure to live in.
You mentioned that you've been in the area for as long as you have, over 30 years. What made you decide to get into this whole tiny living? What was the catalyst, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, I work as a professional organizer anyway, and so I've travelled and moved home innumerable times over the course of my very young and older life, so I'm very good at letting things go. And then more recently, I was separated from my then husband, and we sold our common property. And then I went on a world trip with my son and so on and so forth, and I basically started to run out of money. And I needed to come up with a solution that was going to work for me financially, but also thinking about a tiny house. It's something that's been on my mind probably for 4 or 5 years now. And so it actually dovetailed quite well into that for me and brought about this very circumstance which I was interested in. So I'm quite happy with the way it's turned out.
And Louise, I reckon in an apocalyptic event when services like power and services are completely shut down, the ones who are going to survive the best, I think, are going to be tiny homers who are self-sufficient.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who live in tiny homes that are off the grid, which can be really wonderful. Collecting water might be an issue for some these days. It depends on what water storage they've got. But solar, of course, is a fantastic option for people in our country. I myself am not off the grid, but I certainly have minimal requirements when it comes to power or water in my tiny house, because as you can imagine, everything is a small percentage of what most people would use in an ordinary sized house.
So you decided to build. Then do you do this land share, or did you actually buy some property to put your tiny home on?
No, the tiny house was built by my child's father, who is a very dear friend. And in fact, I live on their property as a member of the household. So I didn't need to buy land, thank goodness.
Because that is something that is really taken off. Somebody pointed this out to me the other day. The amount of people that are land sharing now, it really has become the option.
Look, it definitely is moving forward, thank goodness, because of course a key reason why people move into tiny houses is because that they offer a certain amount of financial freedom and lack of obligation to banks or mortgages. And to think that you might invest in a tiny house and then have to spend $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 on a block of land is just nuts. But if people can cooperate and if councils can move forward and encourage people to cooperate on blocks of land, then it makes so much more sense for everybody.
I mean, it's just a no-brainer on so many levels. I wonder why there is a little bit in people's thinking about tiny homes. Can you help me and our audience understand what some of the resistance might be?
Perhaps some of it might be that people simply can't see themselves living in tiny houses. There might be some judgment around what kind of person lives in a transportable dwelling. I couldn't be sure about that, but possibly a hangover from the 70s and 80s, people just judging other people living in small spaces. But apart from that, I think that whatever negativity may have lingered around the concept of tiny houses is really changing now. Look, unfortunately, they're not as affordable as they used to be. When I first started exploring it, you could pick up a tiny house brand new from between $60,000 and $80,000. Now, of course, they've not only become more of a luxury designer featured dwelling, longer and bigger as more people take them on and actually embrace the idea of it. And you'd be basically starting at $130,000, $140,000 a lot of the time, which on some levels, considering you don't have a block of land to put it on, is not as affordable as it used to be. People are getting on the bandwagon, let's say. Designers, builders are getting on the bandwagon, but hopefully it still stays as an affordable option because land is and always has been the most expensive aspect of owning property.
And I wonder if people think that the actual size puts them off because, let's face it, I said this the other day, the amount of space, wasted space that we have in reasonable size homes. And I'm absolutely in the same category, having a large house, living in the house actually by myself for a number of years. Terrible, the amount of wasted space. And I think there's this sort of mindset that, oh no, I couldn't possibly live in such a small, tiny dwelling.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, if you look, as I did while I was coming into this serious dream of pursuing getting one made, if you look at anyone who's actually lived in one for a while, everyone will just say, I love it. I love it. I don't think I've ever actually seen, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but ever actually seen someone going, oh no, it's not what I expected. I have to get out of here. Even people with children or pets, there's something to be said for everything being so close at hand, easy to clean, easy to maintain. It's just wonderful.
And you talk about easy to clean, of course, the reduced maintenance. If you've got smaller maintenance costs and less of that going on, there is more time, as I mentioned, to actually get out and just enjoy your life rather than the burden, instead of some of these expensive maintenance items that we have with larger dwellings.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could completely clean the exterior of my house in about an hour, as I do probably twice a year. I've got a lot of windows, but even then, if I had someone come and clean them, I think they quoted me $70 most recently to do the entire place. Everything is on a smaller scale, but easy to keep clean. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful from a home maintenance point of view.
And energy efficiency, because you've got a smaller space, and there seems to be quite a emphasis on the way that they are insulating these homes. Tell us a little bit about yours with the insulation and what you went through, because it does keep the energy costs low.
Absolutely. Well, the designer who built the home we were incredibly efficient in terms of materials and projected energy costs. And so we have it double insulated with space in between, obviously the metal on the outside and the board linings on the inside. So we actually calculated about 4 or 5 months ago now. I do use a gas for my hot water in the shower and at the tap, of course, but that's it. I have an electric panel wall heater, which I very rarely use because the tiny house is so beautifully insulated. But we worked out I use $7 a week electricity.
Wow.
Pretty phenomenal. And I am completely comfortable. Now, I mean, I'm a single person, so I don't have massive energy requirements but I have got an induction cooktop. So, yeah, I mean, you can't beat figures like that. It's really doable.
Now, I've seen the video that they did with your tiny home. It looks just very magical. It's a return to nature where you've got this tiny home sited. How much of attraction was that factor? Because they are smaller spaces. You can get them into areas where there's a lot of trees. You don't need to fell the trees. You can just wheel it on in and back to nature.
Yes, so it can be really easy to park a tiny house anywhere that there is level ground, whether you prefer full sun or shade or whatever. And I've noticed in an increasing way, people with blocks of land offering tiny house owners a place to park their homes, particularly if they are off-grid. And so what that means is in the flush of tiny house interest that's happening in our country and across the globe, people with land are realizing that they can make an income just from offering someone a patch of land to set their tiny house up on. And that has obvious benefits for tiny house owners and for landowners as well. So there can be a mutual benefit there.
So what are a couple of things that people in their preparation should really focus on when getting into a tiny home?
The first thing would be to keep a dream file, whether it's on YouTube or on a Microsoft Word document, to keep a list of everything that you really fancy. Because everything's within about 6 feet of where you're standing at any given time, it's really important to be crystal clear about the things that you want in your tiny home, in front of you and as a part of your daily life. The second, probably equally important thing, speaking as a professional organizer, would be start to let go of stuff, because I know that I was probably about as organized as a human being can possibly be, and I still had to and still probably should let go of even more stuff. So start by letting go, I did, of 3 things every day, but this is something that will go on for a long time. You don't have the storage. There's no point in getting a storage container if you want to live simply. Just start letting go.
And what about in terms of the builder? Because I would imagine that you would have done so much due diligence around that just to make sure that all of the comments, the referrals, the reviews, all of that stuff really stack up.
Absolutely. Reviews, I think on any subject, whether it's builders, accommodation, anything you do, I always check the reviews. I read the negatives and the positives. Tiny homes are a bandwagon, and honestly, builders are getting on the bandwagon, and even unqualified people. So do get reviews, do get recommendations. I was very lucky because it was a personal friend who built it, who was a bit of a details freak, and I knew it was going to be perfect. But if you're getting one done, you cannot get enough reviews and recommendations from people. Get things in writing. Be careful not to give too much money away till you have proof of product, anything like that. Look after yourself, because it is a bandwagon people are jumping on, and not everything can be guaranteed. So take care.
Yes, some solid advice around the review aspect. Make sure that you get plenty of those. And you are right about the growth within the building of tiny homes. They have grown in the ability for builders now to make a pretty decent sort of an income from building them. So those solid reviews are a step in the right direction. Well, once again, Louise, great to chat about the tiny home space, and thank you for the tips and advice for our listeners. Enjoy your Saturday and your tiny home.
That's a great pleasure. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Why blow your advertising budget on ads people ignore? Connect your business to our niche real estate audience. It's a targeted way to reach the right people. We have over 1,000 episodes on real estate, the largest property podcast library in Australia. Our email address is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.